Have you ever felt the tension between wanting more for your team but not wanting to come across as too harsh? You can see the potential, you know that things could be better. You know the standard needs to rise. But at the same time, you're thinking, I don't want to discourage them. I don't want to hurt their confidence. I don't want to come across as too critical, and I don't want to damage relationships. So instead, you soften things. You lower the expectations slightly. You let things slide just a little, and over time, what happens? The standard drops, the frustration rises, and you feel stuck in the middle. Now, today we're going to talk about how to raise the bar without crushing anyone's spirit, because you don't have to choose between being kind and leading well. The truth is, you can actually do both.
Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Woman of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in.
Now, before we dive in, if raising expectations or addressing performance issues feels uncomfortable because you're unsure about what to say, I want to point you to the difficult conversation script pack. Because one of the biggest challenges leaders face, and I find that it's more women leaders than male leaders, is knowing how to communicate standards clearly without sounding too harsh or over-explaining. Now, the difficult conversation script pack is going to give you practical, calm, confident language for exactly those types of conversations. Now, you can go to womanoffaithinleadership.com/conversations to learn more about the difficult conversation script pack. Now, here's what most Christian women in leadership experience. You care really deeply about people. You want your leadership to reflect compassion, encouragement, patience, and grace. And that is one of your strengths, is the fact that you want to do that. But sometimes that strength turns into hesitation, because raising the bar feels like you're being critical. It feels like you're being demanding. It feels like you're putting pressure on people, on risking the relationship. So instead of being clear, you become careful. And careful leadership often sounds like you saying, it's okay, just do your best. Or no pressure, it's okay, we can figure this out together. It's fine, I'll fix it this time. Next time you have to do it by yourself. But here's the truth. When standards are unclear, people don't feel encouraged. They actually feel unsure and discouraged. And uncertainty doesn't build confidence. It just creates inconsistency. You're not protecting your team by lowering the bar, which is what we think we're doing, right? But what you're actually doing is you're limiting their growth. So let's break this into 4 simple shifts that will help you raise the bar while still standing or leading with grace. Okay, number 1, separate the person from the standard. This is where many leaders get stuck. They connect performance with personal worth. So correcting someone is maybe you feel like I'm criticizing them, but you're not actually addressing the person. What you are addressing is the standard that they're not meeting. So this will sound like this isn't about you as a person. This isn't personal, but this is about the expectations for your role and the standards of your role and the expectations that you are not meeting. So number 2, be clear about what excellence looks like. So this is very important that during your onboarding process, you are going to set the expectations. You need for people to know exactly what the expectations are, so that when you have these expectations of raising the bar and them not meeting their expectations, you can actually refer back to that and say, do you remember when we were during your onboarding, these are the expectations that we set. However, sometimes it does happen, or in many companies that I've worked with, they don't actually set the expectations very clear during onboarding. And it does boggle my mind sometimes that companies would not do that, but I've personally experienced that myself as well. You just start in the company and they expect you just to pick up everything as you go. No expectations set, no proper onboarding training. You just have to go because you've got the qualification. They expect you just to jump in and do the work. But you have to set those expectations. So you cannot raise the bar if those expectations have not been set clearly. So you can't say things like do better, improve this, be more professional, because things like that is just not helpful. But instead what you need to do is you need to define it. What does better actually look like? So for example, what specifically needs to change about what they are doing or not doing? So be specific as possible. What does success look like? So if they have changed the thing that they needed to change, whether it was performance or behavior or a task that they need to do better, you need to let them know what success will look like in the end. So if they have achieved that, how will they know that they've been successful? And then what standards are you holding? So for example, let's say you're working in an Excel spreadsheet and they have to input numbers in the Excel spreadsheet. Your standard might look different than their standard. So if you like, for example, this is such a silly example, but it is one that I've actually encountered myself, is let's say, for example, you're doing an Excel spreadsheet, they're putting in the numbers. You like for there to be borders around the column or like the borders and shading. You like to put it around to make sure that if it's printed out, the border is around and it's clear and it's defined. Somebody will go and input those numbers for you. They print it out for you and they give it to you, but it doesn't have the borders around. Such a silly example, but it's, like I said, it's the one that I've encountered. So you need to go and make sure that simple standards like that are even set. Sometimes you think it's common sense to someone, but what's common sense to you, and I've said this so many times, is not common sense necessarily to somebody else. Their previous boss might have said, don't worry about borders and shading. We don't have time for that. Just print it out. Whereas you might like that when you present it to the board, for example. So because it just looks nicer. Okay, so silly example, but I hope that that clarifies to you what I mean by make sure that your standards are clear. So clarification or clarity actually removes confusion and makes growth possible for anybody in your team, no matter if it's from the administrator all the way up to the CEO. So number 3, speak with truth and encouragement. So I want to say that being truthful to someone is not being unkind. It's really hard for us to have these difficult conversations with people because we don't want to speak the truth. But the problem is that if you don't speak the truth, you're actually being unkind to that person. So truth and kindness actually goes together. It's not polar opposites of each other. But when you are speaking truth, you can totally be encouraging to that person. So this is where Christian leadership is so powerful, because Jesus spoke the truth, but he spoke the truth with encouragement, and he spoke the truth in love. And as a Christian, that's something that you are able to do as well, because you're a child of God. And so you don't have to choose between truth and grace. You can actually hold both. So for example, you can say something like, look, I know you're capable of this and I want to help you to get there. So you're encouraging them, you're speaking the truth, but you're also being graceful. Or something like, this is specifically what needs improvement, and I believe you can do it. I believe this is why we employed you. I know you're able to do this, and I know it's hard for you at the moment. However, this is the standard that our company holds, and this is what you need to be aiming towards. So you're speaking the truth, but you remain encouraging. Truth gives them the direction that they need. Without truth, they are just going to be on a winding road, not knowing where they're going. Whereas truth just gives them a straight path to where they need to be. And encouragement, while you are speaking the truth, will 100% build their confidence. And together with truth and encouragement, your employee can actually grow, the growth that you need in your company. So number fourth and final one, is stop carrying what belongs to them. So sometimes as leaders, and I find female leaders do this more than men, is that sometimes we just carry the thing that they actually need to do, we start carrying it for them. Because we don't want to have that difficult conversation. We don't want to speak the truth to them. So we just actually start doing their job for them because it's just easier. There's a saying that says, if you want something done, do it yourself. In leadership, unfortunately, that's not the truth. You cannot hold that truth. Yes, if you want something done your way, then yes, you do it. But if you want something done, you have to delegate that to somebody else. Or, like I always say as well, if a person's getting paid for that job, they need to be doing that job. You're getting paid to do your job. They're getting paid to do their job. And if they're not doing their job, we need to hold them at those standards. So this is really a big one, because as leaders, we often will step in, fix things, overfunction, take responsibility. And a really good example was we were going through an audit at the place where I was working at. And we had so much work to prepare for that audit. We were really underprepared. We should have been prepared ages ago, but we were not. So when we got the letter to say that we were going to be audited, instead of delegating all the work that we had to do, I took the work upon myself. Why? Because I felt bad. I didn't want to overload people now with their work, because I know how the amount of work that they had. And so I didn't want to give them extra work. So instead of actually just delegating and saying, hey, going through an audit is actually part of all of our roles. It's in all of our job descriptions. So we need to delegate. We need to work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. Let's get this all done and get ready for the audit. I took it all upon myself. Why? Because I felt bad. And so I just worked myself, my fingers to the bone, to get ready for this audit. And ultimately what happened was, when we went through the audit, I was the only person who could speak to the auditor, because I was the one who did all the work in preparation for the auditing process. Is if I had delegated, the auditor could have spoken to so many other employees and it would have taken the pressure off me. So it's actually really silly that we think we should just take on everything by ourselves because we feel bad, or because we don't want to, raise the bar than what it already is risen. But we should, because that is how leadership works. We have to absolutely delegate. And so we have to, what I want to add there, just to finish off, is that we should not feel bad about delegating, because we are also raising the bar for them. We're raising the bar for them to learn to work hard, or to take on more than what they necessarily should, because it also increases their own capacity. Some people have limited capacity, so they can only work with this amount of stuff. But when you go through a process like an auditing process, all of a sudden everybody has to work together to do more than what they normally do. And while they do that, you're actually helping them to increase their capacity, because the only way to increase a person's capacity is by actually giving them that little bit by little bit by little bit of work, so that they can increase their capacity, right? So if you've been avoiding raising the standard in your company, in your role, in your department, because you're unsure how to say things clearly, I do want to point you back to the difficult conversation script back. It will really help you to just give you the words that you need to help you what to say. Not all the difficult, the script backs will point to certain conversations, but what it will do is it'll guide you in the right direction. It'll give you clear, practical steps, calm, confident language, and a structure for addressing performance with wisdom and grace. So just go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/conversation. So what I want to say in closing is that raising the bar is not unkind. It is leadership. It's how you build strong teams, create a healthy culture, and help people grow into what they're capable of becoming. You are also training up leaders for the future. You don't know which one of your employees will become a leader one day. And if you don't push them sometimes just to go a little bit beyond their capacity, or to raise those standards, how do you think they will ever raise the standards for their employees if they're in a leadership role one day? You're actually not crushing their spirit by setting those standards. You're actually strengthening them. So lead with clarity, lead with courage, lead with both grace and truth, and trust that God is working through you as you develop people around you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.